So hi there, Meisha. How are you doing?
Okay, yes, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. So I'm Kay Holdsworth. I'm one of the wellbeing practitioners here at Leeds Trinity, and I've got Meisha. Meisha, if you just quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, so I work in the student administration team at Leeds Trinity, but I'm very passionate about mental health and well-being, so that's why I'm here today.
And so, welcome to Self Care for Success. And today, the aim for today is that, well, hopefully, you'll take away some tools, some activities that are going to help you to improve your self care. And also, you probably have your ideas about what self care is, but an understanding of why it's so important. Because I think actually, with it saying self care for success,
Mm,
our success in life, I would go as far as to say it does depend on our ability to look after ourselves. What do you think, Misha?
absolutely, because it's such a foundation, isn't it? If we've got those needs met of looking after ourselves, then it means that we can build upon for success, achievement, accomplishments once that self-care basis is there.
Yeah, definitely. Because self care is, if you just move the slide one more time as well, it is about the little things that we can do to look after ourselves and our mental health. It's paying attention to how we feel, listening to our own bodies and what they need. It's about it's about looking after ourselves on like mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's doing something to help ourselves and making time to do things that make us feel good as well. Is there anything else you'd add about it, what self care is, Misha?
I think it's an easy one to not prioritize because sometimes we can be at the bottom of the pecking order. It might be that we're looking after other people, or we're working, or we've got university deadlines. So self care might feel like it's not a priority to us, or we don't have time for it. And we're going to talk about all the different ways and what self-care looks like. But I think as we go through the presentation today, we'll start to understand how important it really is.
Yeah, it really is important. And I like this picture here of a car. The reason I've put that up there is because I want you to imagine that you bought yourself a new car, but instead of looking after it and putting petrol in it, getting the water and the oil checked, getting the tires pumped up, having the MOT, you didn't do any of those things. You just drove it, like hours and hours and hours, pushing it to its limit. Then let's face it, within a year or two, your lovely new car is going to be knackered, to be fair. And
Yeah.
this is what we do to ourselves if we're not careful. So it's
Mm.
so important. And so I thought we'd both ask ourselves, Misha, on a scale of 0 to 10, how good are you in terms of your own self care? 10 being great, 0 being not at all. I'm putting myself at about, I think, a 7. I think I was tempted to put an 8, but maybe that
Mhm.
was a bit, yeah, 7, but there's always room for improvement. What about you?
I was immediately drawn to six because I
Mhm.
think at busy periods of when a lot's happening, that's when, for me, self-care can kind of tumble away and it gets forgotten about. It doesn't get prioritized. So
Mhm.
definitely, yeah, room for improvement, but I have a much better understanding of what self-care is than maybe I did a few years ago, so that's why
Mm.
I'd give it a six.
Yeah, I think when I was a student many moons ago, my level of self-care was probably like a 3 or a 4, it was low. And it's only with time and age that I've definitely, because well-being is, well, it's what I'm passionate about, and I know it's what you're passionate about, Misha. So
Yeah.
we tend to prioritize it more than say when we were younger. And also what you pointed out there, Misha, about how when things get really busy, we might not prioritize it. But also when we're not feeling great,
Mm,
ironically, the thing that we should be prioritizing, our self-care, we tend to let it slip.
yeah.
So, and that actually, it doesn't do us any more. It it's not helpful, is it, when we do that?
No, not at all. And I think what I thought was self-care are probably very short-term methods of self-care. Like I would be craving slobbing on the sofa and watching TV, or I'd be craving having a bath. And absolutely, they are parts of self care, but they maybe don't nourish you in the long run. You don't feel particularly, I don't feel very energized by those things in the longer term. So I've learned that although they're important, it's maybe better to um, make sure that my environment's calm around me before I then go for a bath, rather than prioritizing, I'm just going to go and lay in the bath and scroll on my phone.
Hmm.
But actually doing those things that are going to help energize you and benefit you in the longer term can then mean when you get to the bath part, that's more relaxing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So if we just move on a slide, because I was on Instagram the other day, and I've seen this a couple of times. It's a post, and it's got a video with, there's a girl in her car, and she's got a big coffee in front of her, and she's looking really like she's having a hard day. And then underneath it there's captions, and it says something like along the lines of, so today, did you get some fresh air? Did you Have you been outside today? No. And then, did you get enough sleep? No, I didn't. And these lots of different questions. And it's like, well, it's a no-brainer really then, isn't it, as to why you might be struggling. And we get that all the time with students come into our service when they're struggling with the mental health, is that often the basics, eating well, getting enough sleep, moving your body, not too much screen time, that those kind of things, which are the like foundations for looking after ourselves, if they're not in place, then it's not surprising that we might be struggling. But yet, I don't know, we seem to forget that they're important, just maybe because they are so basic. Because we all
Yeah.
know about those things, don't we, Misha? We all know that we should be doing them, but prioritizing them is not always easy.
Yeah, and I think we're not going to be perfect and we're not going to be able to prioritize them every
Exactly.
single day, 365 days a year. But maybe thinking about that, the majority of the time, those foundations are there so that there's 6 to 8 hours of sleep, or you're drinking enough water, or you're having some good, nutritious meals. And not to say there aren't going to be nights where we want a pizza and we eat a pizza, but that maybe is the minority of the time, where the majority is we've got those basics in place, and that's going to help and keep us energized and keep us healthy and keep our self-care a priority.
Hmm. Yeah, we're always going to have moments, aren't we, where things slip, but it's getting back into that, and just being aware when we are, and just thinking, oh well, am I actually doing? Am I meeting the basic needs? It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, really.
Mhm.
Like he talks about needing like safety and belonging and shelter, but also we do need to look after ourselves. We need to, ideally be eating well and sleeping and moving our bodies and getting fresh air. So,
Yeah.
okay. So we're going to come up with some ideas. So me and Misha. So I want us to think of, within 1 minute, Misha. That's
Mhm.
quite a. Well, we won't time it exactly, but anyone who's watching this can do it with us as well. Feel free to pause the recording if you want, and just come up with as many self-care ideas, practices, things that you do that can help. Okay, so when you're ready, steady, go. I've got my 10. How are you doing?
Wow, yeah, that's fast. Yeah, I can go for it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'll go in no particular order. These are the ones that I thought of. So dancing, sunlight, dog walking, yoga, having a bath, because you mentioned that. Create. I actually don't bother with baths, but creative stuff, creative activities, socializing, friends, laughter, journaling, eating well, being kind to yourself, which we're going to come on to later, and sleep.
Yeah, I got really similar ones. Um, I got for me the number one is a calm environment. So if
Hmm.
I'm living in chaos, that messy shed, messy head, I can't look after myself if my
Hmm.
environment is really hectic.
That's a
Re
really important one,
Yeah.
actually, just to
Hmm.
pause there for a
Mm,
moment to reflect on that, because clutter around us really does impact our mental health and how we feel.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're watching this and you're in your room and it's a mess, which I know, it can happen, can't it? Just
Yeah.
imagine what might happen if you just cleared all the stuff off the floor. Imagine how
Yeah.
much better you might feel.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it maybe doesn't feel like a self-care activity, or tidying up doesn't seem quite as nourishing in a way, but I think it means that you've got that basics there, for then you can build upon that. So then you can do the other
Hmm.
things, because I know that my next one is reading, but I know if I'm in a really messy bedroom, then I can't really enjoy the reading aspects because I'm busy thinking, oh, well, I need to do all of these things. And yeah, it's tricky. Baking's a big one for me. I find that really therapeutic, and I guess everybody's self-care activities are going to be very different, but it feels very mindful to do something like that. And a bit like you were saying, Kay, with the creative doodling, drawing, painting, they don't have to be amazing outcomes, but it's just can be quite relaxing for your mind to do something like that. Cooking a good meal, or
I got
cooking
that
any
one, yeah.
meal, yeah. And I said it before as though it was a short-term thing, but it can be nourishing in different ways, because I said a pamper night with friends. So maybe if you all put a face mask on and you just have that relaxation time together, it could be a bit like you said of laughing with friends. It can encompass a few. Um, Therapy. I talked about reaching out. For me, therapy is a big self-care activity, because it's almost investing in yourself. It's prioritizing your well-being. Um, so that's what the student mental health service is for. And yeah, prioritizing sleep, walking, and exercise.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different self-care activities out there. There's so many things that we can do for
Yeah.
ourselves. And it is what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So it's finding what works for you best. So, but for this session today, we're going to go through a few little practical activities that you can do that can really help. And compassion, being kind to yourself is a major, important, I think a massive important act of self-care, because so many students that I come across are really hard on themselves. They put a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations on themselves. And yeah, they want into, they want them to do well, and they want to maybe motivate themselves. But actually, ironically, it doesn't have that impact at all. What it does is just creates this vicious feedback loop and make them feel even worse about themselves. So this activity we're going to do now is really, really simple, and it's just called Three Kind Things. And you can pause this recording, and all you're going to do is just write three kind things about yourself. So, shall we have a go, Misha, really fast? Right,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
ready? Three
Yeah.
kind things, whatever. So, if you're ready, whenever you are, there's no
Hmm.
rush. So, go on then. What are your three, Misha?
One of them is that I'm quite organised. I like to be organised with things, so trying to acknowledge that I'm capable
Yeah,
at doing
good.
that. I'm kind to other people, try and be friendly, and I put patient as well. That was a bit of a random
Brilliant.
one, but
The patience is really is a really like really positive strength, isn't it? I think. So I've put I'm a good friend. I'm disciplined because I do yoga most days, and I've
very
put I
good.
work hard.
Nice, nice.
So yeah, and so that's just a really simple activity that any of you could do at any time. And so another activity, well, actually, it's a question. So if we just move on to the next slide, and Misha, if you can just talk about this for a moment.
Yeah, so this one is because we can be so hard on ourselves. We can naturally put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be doing everything, to keep on top of everything. And that can be really hard when we're juggling a lot, if that's university deadlines or there's lots going on in our personal life. So we can often expect ourselves to be perfect or expect ourselves to be amazing at everything and to be doing it all. But this really helpful self care question is, what would you say to your best friend if they came to you and said, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or they came to you with their problem? What would your response be? It probably wouldn't be like, oh well, come on, get on with it. You're fine. You need to do it. You'd probably take a step back and you'd say, oh well, that sounds like you're going through a hard time or you've got a lot on. And it's just that reflection technique, really, is to maybe slow down and think, what would you say to your best friend? That can be a really important act of self care as well, just to be a bit kinder to ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really powerful question to ask ourselves, I think. And also, leading on from that, another activity which is pretty similar, but is about unhelpful thinking, is there might be something that you're saying to yourself. It might be something along the lines of, I, I can't, I can't cope, or I'm going to fail my course, or I'm not good enough. And if we've got some unhelpful thinking going on, what we can do is we can write down. So you write down the unhelpful thought first of all. So perhaps the unhelpful thought might be along the lines of, I am not good enough and I'm going to fail my course. Okay, so that could be the unhelpful thought. And then you can then ask yourself, well, what would a good friend say about this? And maybe think about writing that down, journaling about what would a good friend say about that thought? Because the chances are, would they think that you're not good enough? Would they think that you're going to fail? And also, then the next question might be, is there another way of looking at this situation? And then finally, is to rewrite what you've said in a more realistic, more balanced way. So instead of saying to yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm going to fail, what could you say instead? So you might say something like, I'm doing my best, and my best is good enough. And, you might tell yourself instead that, well, looking for qua evidence to prove that actually you are going to be okay. That actually I'm doing okay. I have passed previous assessments.
Hmm.
And, so you could journal on that, or you could even just simply say, well, I am good enough. I have been doing okay up to now. So I'm going to be okay. So I've got a little link which I'll send with the questions on that you can follow, because it helps to have something to read to remind yourself of those questions as well. Another, it might seem like a minor thing, it might seem quite insignificant, but this has scientifically been proven. Research has shown that having something to look forward to makes a huge difference. So having that anticipatory feeling of like, yeah, something exciting is going to be happening soon can really help us lift our mood. So what I want you to do now is pause this recording in a moment and really maybe text a friend, put something in the diary, make a decision that you're going to take a trip or you're going to go to a concert or whatever it might be, even just go for a coffee with a friend, something that you're going to look forward to, maybe next week or in a month's time. Is
Mhm.
there anything for you, Misha, that you'd be looking forward to?
Yeah, I suppose it links in quite well because I've got a very busy week ahead, and I am looking forward to having a quiet at home day on Saturday. So it's not as though I'm booking anything, but I've prioritized that time where I don't have any plans, there's nothing in the diary, and that can really impact me negatively if I feel a bit overwhelmed. So then or if there's something that's challenging me, then I quite like to have a day to look forward to of just it doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to leave the house, but I'll just take it a bit slower. So
Hmm.
that's the thing I'm looking forward to.
I like that one, Misha, though,
Yeah.
because what you're saying there is you're prioritizing relaxation
Yeah.
and time, some space for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we need to re-energize ourselves, don't we? Too much going on,
Yeah.
too much busyness isn't always a good thing. We can
Yeah.
cram our diaries if we're not careful with too many things.
Yeah, and I find that then you just need a bit of time just to recharge your batteries, ready for more things and more social things. But yeah. What
Yeah.
about you? Have you got anything like that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms. I have been thinking about a couple of things actually. I've been thinking about a big trip at the end of the year. I'm not saying it's definitely happening, but I've been thinking about going to Australia.
Oh,
So there's
wow.
that. It is only a
That's a
thought at
big
the
one.
moment,
Yeah.
but that would be something serious to look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I've got a big birthday coming up, so a party as well. So I'm
Oh, lovely.
thinking, yeah, thinking
Yeah.
about those things. But yeah, they give you a little bit of a lift, don't they, having something to
Yeah.
look forward
It's
to.
quite
So
motivational. Yeah.
yeah,
Especially if you've got university deadlines, assessment deadlines, anything like that, that maybe that would just be a bit of rocket fuel if you know that you've got a nice concert or a nice meal with friends, anything like that can be a really good thing to have in the diary.
it is. I agree with that in terms of, like you say, when you're in the midst of it and you just like you can't see the light for
Mm,
the wood for the trees when you've got
yeah.
all the assessments, but you've got some, I don't know, a trip or a concert, it can make a big difference.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's the next slide, Misha? Oh yeah. So I've done this before with friends. Actually, this is a lovely activity to do. You could get together with some friends, or you could do this on your own. Find any old box really, it could be a cardboard box or just any container really. You might even want to decorate it, and it can be you can call it a self-care box or a well-being box, and just really get creative if you wish to. And inside you can put things that in a moment when you're feeling low or struggling, that would help you feel a bit better. So it
Mhm.
might be like a scented candle or some chamomile tea, some of your favorite music or inspirational quotes, photos, letters, anything really that is going to be soothing, uplifting, reminders of how great you are. So it could be you could write a letter to yourself about all your successes and achievements and things that actually you're pleased about, proud about. It could be anything like that. Any thoughts about that, Misha?
I don't know why I haven't thought of this before, but I really like this technique, and I think it's one that I'll definitely do.
Hmm.
And the kindness and compassion exercise that we just did, where we wrote down three things that were kind to ourselves, that would be a nice one to put in the box immediately. Um, and yeah,
Hmm.
I like the idea of having a little parcel that you can sit with and just reflect with and slow down with, but it's there as like your go to self-care box. So you might have, yeah, like you say, different nice hot drink in it, something that's quite comforting, or a nice chocolate bar that's your favorite. And it's a lovely idea, really like it.
I like that idea too. Another thing as well is using a mantra. So you could have your own special mantra. So it might be, instead of, feeling I'm not good enough, that you remind yourself I am good enough, and it's something that you can repeat to yourself over, whenever you're feeling like you're struggling or feeling down, repeating it to yourself, I am good enough. Now it has to feel like a good fit. So it might be something like, I am capable, I am strong, I am good enough. Any thoughts about mantras, Meisha?
Um, for me, I have that it's okay to rest and it's okay to prioritize that rest, and I think that's one that I'm really trying to implement, hence why I've got that relaxation day on Saturday. So I think that's one to definitely work on for me. But it's a really good reminder, and again, one to maybe put in the box as well, just so
Mhm.
you can reflect back on those mantras. But I like I am enough, and I'm imagining it a bit like a spider diagram where you can have offshoots and then maybe write the reasons why I am enough, and those
Exactly. Love
positive
that.
affirmations are
Mm.
really good.
I love that idea. We did that a similar activity when we were doing the workshops previously, creating like a mind map, and I
Hmm.
am enough in the center, and having that would be
Yeah.
really lovely. And looking for, yeah, like this, there'll be so many times which sometimes we forget about all the, the good things about ourselves, and
Yeah.
the good things that we've done as well. In terms of
Yeah.
mantras as well, I'm thinking something like, it's okay not to feel good
Hmm.
sometimes, because we're not expecting to feel great all the time, and that's unrealistic. And it is okay not to feel great. We're not
Yeah.
going to always be, um, it's not always butterflies and rainbows, is it? So, or it could be, this too will pass, this will
Mhm.
pass. That those kind of reminders that life is not going to always be like this. Or, I am safe. I quite like that one as well, because sometimes if we're struggling with anxiety,
Mm.
it we can feel unsafe, but oft not always, but it can actually be our minds, the anxious mind, telling us we're unsafe, when actually when we get into the here and now, we actually are safe. So that could be a useful mantra for some people, maybe. And yeah, what would you do? So in terms of like your own self-care, from what we've talked about today or any other ideas, what I'd like you to do is, knowledge is wonderful, but if we don't put it into any kind of action, then it really it's just entertainment, really. So knowledge, with what we've talked about today, what self-care could you put into practice this week? What's one small self-care activity that you might do for yourself? And I'd really like you to maybe pause the recording and just write it down, because it's more likely to happen if you write it down. So Misha, what self-care are you going to do for yourself? I know you're going to have a bit of a quieter weekend, you said, and
Um,
rest.
yeah, I think I'm going to make a self-care box because I think that would be really helpful, and it will probably incorporate a bit of decorating, like you said, and start building up some of those mantras and positive affirmations. So um, I think creating that will feel like a self-care action in itself.
Hmm. I'm going to I'm going to try, and I'm not maybe going to do
Mm.
it every single night, but I'm going to try and go to bed an hour earlier, because I've been feeling a bit tired today, as I said to Misha before we got on the call.
Mhm.
And I think going to bed a little bit earlier and just reading before I go to bed, because that's a really good way to just help me to drop off to sleep, not watching my laptop before I go to bed or the TV, and just giving myself a little bit of space and time, and going to bed maybe an hour earlier. So that's going to be my self-care for this week. But I
That's
won't
a
beat
really good
myself
one.
up if I don't manage it.
Yeah.
And if anyone is struggling out there, if you are finding things tough at the moment, a great self-care practice is to talk to somebody, to reach out for support. And we are here at the Student Mental Health and Wellbeing Service. We're here it's in the bungalow on campus. And to refer yourself in, you just email studentwellbeing@leedstrinity.ac.uk, and we would then, you get a link and you can book in an assessment, and then we have counselling, we have CBT, and we also have wellbeing practitioner support. So feel free to do that. Right, well, thank you, Meisha, for today. And yeah, I'm just looking where to pause the recording. Yeah, so thank you.